Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Gyle here, and welcome back to the Forged Alliance Forever promotional series. Gyle, oh my god, 2 casts in 2 days, I hear you say. That means the world's coming to an end. I swear I read it in the Book of Revelations somewhere. No, it does not mean that. I simply found myself with a little bit more time, which is fun. I like that. We shall do that more often in the future if that's at all possible. And it allows me to bring you some 4v4 action today. It's going to feature an eclectic mix of Joes and pros, albeit leaning slightly more heavily on the pro side, and so therefore not labelled as a Joes. And it's going to take place on Sentina 3. So hold on to your potatoes, ladies and gentlemen, as we go on over to the game zone and see how these guys are going to get on. So I've casted at least 1 or 2 games of this map in the past. If we get a chance, we'll take a look at the map in detail. If not, we will skip it. But first of all, let's introduce the players. We'll call this Team 1 up here at the top and this Team 2 down here at the bottom. Going first for Team 1 over here in Vivacious Violet, it's Dokigen or Dokigen. And he's gone Aeon opening first air, so handling some early air for his team presumably. And to his right over here we have Hickstery, and he's gone Seraphim in Elephantine Grey opening first land. Over to his right, over here on the Eastern Peninsula, we have Tex of Clan Vor, and he's gone Cybrin in Mellow Yellow opening first land. And to the front down here in Burgundy Red, it's Icy Nightmare. I'm wondering if that's TGX Icy under another name. These guys love to change their names and annoy me. How self-absorbed of me is that, assuming that they would change their names because of anything to do with me. But anyway, he's going Aeon, opening first land, and he's making his way towards the middle where there's all that mass, and he's just got no respect for the local ecology whatsoever, beelining straight to that section in the middle without going down the beach like a sensible, normal human being. But anyway, that's Team 1. Let's take a look at Team 2. Down here at the bottom right, my good friend and fellow caster, TA for life, and he's gone Cybrin opening first land in Ferrari Red. To his left, in Cyanide Scion, it's Jav Turkey. It ain't cool being no Jav Turkey so close to Thanksgiving. Answers on a postcard if you know what movie that's from, and I'll be impressed. That is Aeon he's selected there. He's gone first land. And over on the far left in the west, it's Dark Templar. He's gone Seraphim in Electric Blue opening first land. And up front, Sneaky Snake already at the middle and getting embroiled in some action with Icy Nightmare. He's gone UEF and open first land, and Icy Nightmare kind of ignoring Snake for the most part. He's got one spirit with him that's been blapping away on that commander. He backs that up, wants to keep that intel intact. Don't blame him, good job for him. Snake made his way onto the other side, wants to pick up as much a reclaim as possible on Team 1's side of the divide. But I think that does mean that Icy's slightly ahead in terms of amount of mass gain so far. We'll take a look at that in just a second, but look out, look at all the ACUs from Team 2 massing in the middle. It is a regular ACU fest in here for Team 2. Jive Turkey throws down a PD, and that is going to be enough to force Nightmare to back up somewhat as he goes down into the yellow incredibly quickly, down to around 6,600 HP. Of course, the causeway here, surrounded on both sides by water. Very easy indeed for an ACU that finds itself in trouble to wade into the shallows and take the pressure off. Vortex turns up for Team 1 with his ACU. That will be incredibly welcome for Nightmare indeed, as he's going to have to back up into the shallows. 4,500 hit points remain on that comm. Sneaky Snake does descend into the yellow himself, 8,400 hit points for him, but I think this is going to be an overall win for Team 2 mass-wise. 6,600 and climbing banked so far for Icy Nightmare, and we compare that to Sneaky Snake is on around 5,600, but of course you've got all these other ACUs in here. TA for life scooping mass as we speak. Jive Turkey doing the same. You throw that all together and that is a current win for Team 2. Icy Nightmare trying to do a bit of a distance reclaim job here, but the 2 T1 PDs that will soon be in operation will mean that all of the rest of this mass is essentially now secured for Team 2. That Continental Wreck alone will net them a decent amount of reclaim. Answers in the comment section below if you've been bothered to look that up on the database to see how much that brings in, but it's a decent amount. Of course, Nightmare not wanting to give up on the reclaim job. There's still a lot of mass to be got here. I like what he's doing. He's staying safe, but at the same time pillaging about as much mass as he can possibly get his hands on. Meanwhile, we've had a bit of a drop over here in the west for Dokijan. He's dropped 2 units of build capacity, going to throw down a land factory and pick up those other mexes. Meanwhile, TA for Life on the other side of the map has hoofed it out on foot. That lone engineer there making its way across to the beach, throwing down a land factory on the side. And the only player for Team 2 interested in naval play for the moment seems to be TA for Life. Actually, scratch that. We do have some now in play, or say in play, but on the way for Dark Templar. But Team 1 seemingly much more interested in naval matters. A lot of T1 factories there for Vortex. He's going mass T1 spam. We've got an upgrade on the way for Hickstry, and another upgrade completed for Dokijan. That's very early T2 Navy, 5 minutes gone, and already starting work on a Vesper T2 Subhunter. Nice work there from him. That early T2 Navy could certainly throw a few issues up for Team 2. More T1 naval factories queued up there for TA for Life. In fact, he's going mass T1 as well by the looks of things. Hardly surprising, heavy involvement in the naval game on a map such as this. Crucially, these large bowls of water can disrupt any progress that a team has made in gaining territory on that central causeway there. So gaining naval advantage is a decent, gives you a decent chance at winning this game. TA for Life coming in on the right with a Mantis and a Mole to hopefully put a stop for Team 2's sake to Vortex incursion up here on the beach. Vortex landing 3 units of build capacity down here, trying to throw together a land factory, but the Mantis is going to scupper the plant, I think. An attempt at a reclaim there from Vortex, but no joy. There goes the next one, and the factory is cancelled. So that is the end of that little incursion. For the moment, at least, it does look like that side island is in reasonably safe hands, albeit under some naval pressure from Tex. We do, of course, have large cliff edges that, well, shields this central island somewhat from the horrors of the sea. It's a good place to build a factory in there. Missile cruisers, missile-based cruisers like UEF and Seraphim can still get around that, of course, but Cybran one's going to have problems. Of course, it's nothing to stop little Cybran destroyers, Salem sprouting legs and going for a walk down the side, as they often like to do. Central-wise, things looking pretty secure at the moment, and I do stress at the moment for Team 2. We've got Oblivion Point Defense in play. We've got a shield gen now on the way, and Hickstry is going to have to back on up in the face of that adversity. Nothing he can do on that side of things. We still haven't completed... Oh, actually, we should have. Yeah, we have. There we go. Vesper on the way now down the western edge of the map for Dokijan. And the main action on the map at the moment is between the two T1 navies of TA for Life and Tex over in the east here. Little bit of a freeze up there, and not sure what's causing that. I forgot to mention as well, this is of course another game featuring the spectacular RK4000 explosion mods, so make sure you don't look directly at them. They will turn you to stone. Rather an unknown side effect of this mod, of course. But cheeky little drop there from Hickstry. Dropped some engineers right on the side of TA for Life's factory there. I did actually see him a little bit upset about something. Perhaps he landed them on top of the factory. That is known to happen. Cybran buildings, incredibly pointy. It's very bad for your health. You don't want to land on top of those if you can avoid it. Now we're getting some airplay from these two teams. Hickstry, TA for Life, hovering over the eastern edge of the map. Rather curiously, though, this Vesper not doing anything. Early advantage from that early T2 Navy potentially being a bit wasted here. I really think he should have been coming straight in here and harassing, maybe trying to pick off a naval yard or something, but as a result, for the moment, it looks like he's on protective detail of that western side island. TA for Life starting to lose a little bit of ground against techs here. A lot of tridents and slivers making life difficult. We have got an upgrade on the way for TA. He's going straight for T2 Navy, but it'll be a little while before he can start getting some T2 units out. That's at around 95%, and he's already got T1 naval units coming in the eastern approach. Hopefully the units rolling off the conveyor belt from these other T1 factories should distract Vortex long enough, but I think he's homing in on the engineers here that are currently trying to throw together a scuttle. That's a Cyberin T1 torpedo launcher to the layman. As a result, TA for Life going to lose a lot of engineers here. That is definitely not ideal. He's going straight for a Barracuda, and that's at around 40 to 45%. I think he'll probably be able to finish that, really. Yeah, build capacity, what's left of it. Thinks it's more important to get in there and assist with the construction, or maybe not, actually. Barracuda's taking a lot of fire in the dock there. Ah, look at that. That's real annoying. TA for Life having to bring his ACU into the water here. Maybe going to start trying to reclaim some of these units. This is good shutout work from Vortex. He has got other problems, though. There's a naval factory a little bit further up, which is going to be pumping more units down into the fray and potentially cutting this off from reinforcements. So whether or not Team 2 are going to be able to sustain that attack remains to be seen. Meanwhile, though, a large hover tank army coming across the water here. Large group of Auroras coupled with some flak there. We've got a couple of units of Ascendants coming in for some anti-air protection for Icy. And that might actually represent the end of TA for Life's occupation of that eastern island there. A lot of Auroras out as well for Jive Turkey. He's trying to come in around the side as well. So Aeon tanks making their mark on this one so far. Self-destruction going on at the front here for Icy. Always good to see someone being efficient with their building. But look what's going on up front. Sneaky Snake has erected a Klinkhammer static T2 artillery emplacement for the UEF. And to give you an idea of the range on that, well, just about everything that belongs to Icy is in range of that. Already see a few units of P-Gens taken out there. Team 1 are going to want to put a stop to that pretty quickly. Things going reasonably well for them on the naval side of things. And that Vesper, if it's the same one as earlier, still not really doing much at all. In fact, that Klinkhammer has been retrained onto the Exodus over here in the west. Akijan just blapping away at that shield gen there. Artillery emplacements not famed for their accuracy, but when they do land, they cause a horrendous amount of damage. And now battle heating up over in the west. Again, more floaty, floaty, naughty, naughty going on between the Zuis and Auroras. You've got to love the little shock waves on this mod as well. It's not just the pretty lights that pop up. The blast waves from the explosions. All blast waves are always good, but look at the amount of units coming in the eastern approach now from Vortex. Lots of T1, but rather more alarmingly for TA for Life, Salem in the bunch as well. Goes a T1 naval yard. TA for Life with his ACU in the mix, and he's got the nanite torpedo launcher upgrade, so that is a key unit now in this fight for the harbour. He's desperately going to want to get rid of that Salem. And Aurora's gifted over from Icy to Vortex's control. Definitely something that makes sense. Good teamwork there from Team 1. Jive Turkey doing what he can to prevent Vortex from just steaming onto land with all those Auroras. But at the same time, doesn't want to unnecessarily throw them away against all of those tridents. And I think TA has managed to hold on here. Vortex backing up out past that harbour entrance. And crucially, he's managed to retain his T2 Naval HQ, which is currently working on more Barracudas. If you'd have lost that, that would have been absolutely disastrous to Team 2's campaign. But as it stands at the moment, that's not the end of the world. It's not ideal, though, for Team 2. They do now find themselves shut out of both of the side islands. They have the middle, but that is a tough hold, especially with the amount of firepower massing in the ocean here for Vortex. All he needs is 1 or 2 cruisers now, and he can start laying down some fire onto this central base. Another clink hammer in operation for Sneaky Snake. He's going to want to get as much shield coverage up as possible to hold on to this causeway. And indeed, there we go, Siren class cruiser in play. And even the Salems have pretty good reach as well. Going straight after that central shield gen, and suddenly Sneaky Snake finds himself with power issues at the worst possible time. The shields disappear, and look at that. That is not good for Team 1 at all. Jive Turkey bringing in his Auroras now to persuade Tex to back on up out of there. But a lot of damage inflicted. The clink hammer's still in operation, but 2 of the front shield gens and the one in the middle out of play now. And what have we got here? Cruiser in operation from Hickstery, stinging at range Dark Templar's naval production. Dark Templar does have access to T2 as well. 1 destroyer in play, although he's going to want to move them. He's taking cruiser missile fire. And Team 2 need to find some way of gaining back at least one of the ponds here. Big Hammer's scoring some lethal hits, though. But still, 2 Salems and a Siren in play here for Vortex. Nice little bit of micro back and forth, trying to make life just that little bit harder for the clink hammers to land any blows. And we've also got issues coming from the other side as well. Vitally important that Team 2 find some way back into the naval game. TA for Life is brewing a little fleet down here at the bottom right. And one of the clink hammers has been destroyed. I'm assuming that's what Icy meant by good job. Down goes another shield. Just one remaining now in the far edge. Blinks back on in the nick of time. That forward clink hammer just outside of the shield there. That is vulnerable, I think. And that is the last bit of shield coverage for those static emplacements. But a ton of Zooies coming out from Dark Templar. Hover units, of course, invulnerable to the submarines. And look at that. Decent work from Templar. I wonder wonder if he's caught Team 1 napping here. And I wish they had focused a little bit more on the Navy, although they are streaming out destroyers a little bit quicker now. Team 2 might have bought themselves a reprieve here. Let's take a look at Eco. Running away with things a little bit. Jive Turkey on 167. Hickstre's actually on 183, unless that's Reclaim Base, so he's actually way out in front. Docogen is on 151. Sneaky Snake on 138. TA for Life way down on 56. He's been hit pretty hard by the early warfare. I think this has stifled him a little bit, and being as Vortex is his mirror in this and is looking like the most aggressive player in the field at the moment, this is not ideal for TA or Team 2. Eco-wise, Team 1 definitely looking more comfortable on this one. Zooey's rolling in on the western side island, though, for Dark Templar. That looks like that could be the end of Docogen over here, although he needs to micro carefully. Wants to keep these alive to at least ensure the destruction of that T2 HQ. Managed to get it. There it goes. What have we got building in the main bases? We can start assuming that big toys are on the way with ecos like that, and indeed there's a GC under construction at the back there for Icy. But a lot of T3 bots in the middle. Percy's showing up for Snake. There's so much crossfire from Tex's Navy here. Look at that bank of Oblivion turrets that's going up front there for Icy. It's almost like a survival game. And as nails as Percival's are, it doesn't look like there's any hope of Snake breaking through that front line. Just not got enough. But GC in play for Jive Turkey, well ahead of Icy, who's still sitting on around 20%. In fact, he's paused construction of that, maybe having some eco issues. But this could cause one or two issues for Team 1. But TA for Life also surrounded in the ocean. We're going to go to split screen here to keep track of these two events. Absolutely crucial. There's a lot of Salems in the water here. TA for Life down to around 5,000 hit points and falling. He has got the nano torpedo launcher, or the nanite torpedo launcher. He's down to around 3,000 hit points. It looks like he's backing up towards the island, but even then he's going to be taking a lot of damage from the Salems on the surface, and he doesn't make it. He goes down. TA for Life bows out after 21 minutes, but meanwhile, a lot of damage being inflicted on that front line thanks to the GC of Jive Turkey. He's going to basically eradicate the entire fortified line of Icy's there. We'll take it back to single screen. But there goes TA for Life's base, and of course Vortex coming in around the back. Jive Turkey has made the transition to T3 Air, and he's got a lot of restorers in play, but of course tons of Sirens in the mix as well. But the base getting absolutely vaporized up here for Icy. That GC just running riot. 42 kills so far and climbing. Are there any ACUs in the area which he could take out? Well, Vortex would be the ideal candidate, their highest player, but his ACU is well out of harm's way now and under the water. But he could certainly tear a hole in the base. Meanwhile, down here at the bottom, the Sirens are primaried by the Restorers. A lot of HP, of course, on the T3 gunships. And down they go. The Salems do still have anti-air, of course, but significantly less than the cruisers. And down goes the GC. Watch for the shockwave. Bam! Goes out right across the map. There it goes. Whoa. That's just too cool, man. It's like some kind of chrono shift. Something out of Star Trek. Love it. But continuing the pressure, Sneaky Snake with a handful of Percivals marching up through the channel that the GC just took. And to add insult to industry, a horde of Zoos coming in from Dark Templar as well. Hickstrey up here at the back has nearly completed, and Ithota, there it goes. So they do have a weapon to throw against this now. The question is how much damage will be caused in the meantime. Strap bombers out for Dokigen. Going after the base in the center. Obviously feels like they've got enough under control. The Zooies have kind of split up to try and inflict maximum damage, but that has now been taken care of. Percival's still online to the east. And Vortex down to 100 mass per tick, so he's been hit pretty damn hard by this attack. Icy down to just 37, so this is a beautiful counter-offensive by Team 2, having lost TA for life. They are still in with a shout at this, and now looking pretty good in the air as well with this horde of Restorers, which is growing bit by bit. There goes the Shocker. Tons and tons of inties in the air for Hickstrey, but they don't last too long against Restorers. Pretty lights. Dark Templar rolling in with yet more Zooies, going after the defensive structures initially. Bulthus coming in though for Hickstrey. Up here to the top. And the destroyers that had made some progress for Dark Templar find themselves under sustained Spectre attack, as well as being harassed by strap bombers. Surprised these Restorers aren't staying in the mix here and trying to finish off that Ithota. That represents a pretty significant threat to their continued existence. Vortex with his fleet a little too close to the shoreline here has been taking some Percival fire. Looks like they just lost a Salem and a Siren there. Vortex's attention obviously elsewhere. Jive Turkey slowly expanding into TA for Life's old base. But he's going to want to pick that up a little bit in order to fend off the inevitable counter-offensive from Vortex. Imagine that's where you want to be going for the moment. Vortex, though, wrapped up in slowing the ground offensive that's been pretty sustained here for the last 5 minutes or so from Team 2. But Hickstrey comes in with a horde of ASFs returning to the air game with a vengeance. And the Restorers, which have been working so well for the last few minutes for Team 2, find themselves a little bit outmatched there. Dark Templar still sending Zooies up in single file, but he's probably going to want to check that and change it up. 25 minutes gone in this one so far. How are we looking eco-wise? Well, 276 for Hickstrey. He's way out in front. Second place eco, it's Jive Turkey. So the two central players for the different teams are winning on eco. 211 next for Dokigen. And 150 and 125 for Vortex, and then Dark Templar. That's good recovery from Vortex, who was on just 100 a moment ago, if you remember. But now another GC marches into the fray, this time from Team 1. Icy blapping away. It's not really blapping when you've got a huge laser that comes out of your face. but searing away at the T3 units coming his way, sucking them up. They are a cool unit. I don't really like Aeon generally, but GC is a very cool unit, albeit the off button for the death ray, a little bit sticky. And now, 2 experimentals up front for Team 1. Ton of blazes brought in there by Jive Turkey. He also brings his restorers in to pile some damage on, but one pass from the ASFs, and they get hit pretty badly. There are some Ioshivas, though, for Dark Templar in the area, and that is enough to retain control of the skies. That is good work from Team 2. The Thota backing up. He's still got 47,000 hit points on that chap. And 66 odd thousand on the GC. Very cagey play now from both of these teams. Bunch of build capacity down here for Vortex. He's being a royal mass burglar, picking up TA for Life's old factories there. And still a few units right here at the back as well. Vortex looking, in terms of territory, very dominant on this side of the map. That's a nasty looking navy that is coming together. Another GC comes in from Team 2. He finds Icy's GC heavily damaged, but of course he's going to take a lot of extra fire from Vortex's navy. He would like to try and kill that GC in a decent position to get some reclaim off it, but that's unlikely to happen with Vortex's fleet so nearby. Any engineers are going to get insta-popped. Another Ithota under construction, and T3 Navy now in play for Dokijan. And one Omen class battleship already on the field. Worst looking battleship in the game by a considerable margin. It's like a giant floater, albeit purple. Someone who definitely needs to see a doctor. Family show, Gyle. Always remember that. Another wave of Percivals, and as great as Percivals are, there's not a great deal of damage that they can cause Team 1 at the moment. They cannot physically get them up there. They need to work on dealing with this fleet. Sneaky Snake can continue to produce those, and I would think defensively, and then look for an opportunity to use them offensively, but he wants to be focusing ideally, I think, on airplay. Give Jive Turkey a hand on that front, allow his restorers to do the work they need to do. And that's the last of the surface vessels down here for Vortex. Just submarines left in around the back of DA for Life's old base. Sneaky Snake thinking about making his way up the causeway and then changing his mind. And now with Galaxies on the scene as well, Vortex transitioning into T3, extra range becomes a major problem. The longer this goes on, the more it plays into Tex's hands. Despite the great work that's been done by Team 2, they seem to be muted in the face of all that naval power. Making another play for the restorers, but likely throwing away all his ASS at the same time. This is now looking spectacularly bad on all fronts for Team 2. Navy lost on both sides of the causeway. Dark Templar still has his naval yards, but they're not pumping units out quick enough. He needs to stop working on the T1, I think. There's no way that's going to get anything done now. Hickstry lining destroyers up front, lapping out any Zooies that come into range. Percival's brought forward by Sneaky Snake, but the massive AoE damage from the chickens takes out a bunch of them. One chicken nearly succumbing there to Ravager fire, but good work by Hickstry gets him out of range and to safety. And now these Percys being harassed by long-range Omen fire. And it is clink hammers all the way, apparently. That is how Sneaky Snake hopes to deal with this situation. I think that is wishful thinking. Self-destruction. Going on as planes fly overhead and into flak. Large self-destruct there on the ground. Sneaky Snake control K-ing just about everything. He's had enough of life. I think that is the overwhelming sign of defeat. Control K's his base, throws out the GG in local chat, walks his ACU forward to his dune, takes a ton of fire,
launch detected,
and down he goes just as a nuke is launched there from Hickstry. And the GGs go out all round. That is well played from Team 1. Anti-nuke is in play for Jive Turkey, but there goes Dark Templar control K-ing his base as well, and all of his units, leaving just Jive Turkey to face the music and jive. Heroic GC up front, taking down a chicken there, but it was all for naught. Gonna get the shockwave, or did we miss it? Where is the giant shockwave? There it goes. Whoa. Okay, you're so gratuitous. And Vortex bringing in his Salems to finish the job. Chicken in tow. So much destruction. Manages to kill off the chicken, but unfortunately it dies right in the center of his base. Drive Turkey bringing his ACU back onto land. Suddenly it being pinged by just about everybody. Are they solaces or shockers? They're solaces, so an attempt at a snipe there from Dokijan, but he would need strats to complete the job, and the strats come in from Hickstry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Boom, baby. Hickstry bags the final kill. And Team 1 survives with all of their members intact. A very comprehensive win. It did look like the tables might be turning for a moment there after that land offensive, but alas, they just didn't manage to deal enough damage with those Percivals and that GC. And Team 1's eco just too strong. Hope you enjoyed that, guys. As always, more to come from me in the future. In the meantime, stay well and stay safe. This is Gyle, signing out.